Hello and welcome to Tip Top C# tutorials again. In this video we will get to know about abstract classes, interfaces, and we will do a comparison and contrasting of both. So first we will get to know what is an abstract class, then we will try to understand what is interface, and then we will do a comparison and contrasting of abstract class and interface. Abstract classes. When you look at this code, we can define a class as abstract by using an abstract modifier, and inside abstract class we can define members like this. The first point to note is abstract modifier applies to methods, properties, and events only inside a class. So you cannot define abstract fields as such. Okay, and abstract members cannot be private. So the least access modifier that you can use for abstract members is protected, or even you can use public or protected internal, but abstract classes cannot have private access modifier. An abstract class can have concrete method. If you see here, we have two abstract members, abstract void my abstract method and abstract int my abstract property. And below that you have void my concrete method, which is actually a concrete member. So abstract class can have a mix of both. And a derived class, when you try to derive it from my abstract class as a base class, then this derived class needs to implement all the abstract members. And concrete members, it's up to the design. If the requirements demand that, we can implement or override that, but otherwise abstract members have to be implemented or overridden. We call it as overriding abstract members like virtual methods. So once you override the abstract members, you need to provide the proper definition for what it could be. So just to mention about the underlying concept, it's abstraction, one of the main pillars of OOPS. Abstraction is nothing but you are giving a high level detail of that particular type. You are not giving the complete concrete implementation of what this will do. You are delegating the implementation to child classes. So whenever you mark a class as abstract and a member as an abstract, that means you must inherit that class and provide concrete definition for that. Interfaces. So interface is declared using this interface keyword, and you can declare the members like this. Interfaces can have declaration for methods, properties, and events only. Just like similar to abstract classes, you cannot have variables or fields here. You can have only methods, properties, and event declarations. And if you notice here, we are using void my method, void my property. We are not specifying private or public or protector or any of the access modifiers. So interface members cannot have any access modifier. If you forcefully try to supply certain access modifier, the compiler will warn you, and while building you will get an error saying that this is not a valid term. So interface cannot have definition for any member. So if you are thinking that, okay, like abstract class, if you're trying to add some definition for one of the methods or definition for one of the properties, that's not going to work in case of interface. It cannot have definition for any of the members, irrespective of whether it is a method or property or event. So let's move on to the implementation side. A class that implements an interface, in this example, my implementation class is implementing my interface. So it has to implement all the members declared in the interface. For example, if you have 10 methods in the interface, you cannot optionally implement 2 methods out of the 10 methods. You have to implement all the 10 methods. And whatever we see here uh, as an implementation and not giving proper implementation and giving throw new not implemented exception, this is an anti-pattern. So when you understand solid principles and open close principles and even interface segregation, you will understand that we should not use a lot of methods in an interface. Interfaces should be finely granular. That we will, for that, please watch our other videos on solid principles and design patterns. So there are two types of implementation explained here. Let's say you have two interfaces, and consciously I'm supplying the same methods in two interfaces and trying to implement two interfaces in one of the implementations class, my implementation. If you see here, in implicit, we are providing the public modifier, and providing the implementation. For the sake of simplicity, we are not giving any definition here. We are just giving throw new not implemented exception. But as I said, this is an anti-pattern. Unless you uh, unless you are not planning to implement a method, you should not put it in the interface and then implement it and give this throw not implemented exception. This is only for illustrative purposes. Please do not follow this as a design practice. So in explicit, what happens is you don't need to give any access modifier like public, but along with the method, you need to prefix the interface type. This happens especially when you have the same method name across multiple interfaces as a way to resolve the conflicting names. But otherwise also this is permitted. And now let's take a look at the differences between this implicit and explicit. So for implicit, only method name is required, whereas explicit you need to prefix the interface name. For implicit, we need to uh, provide the access modifier as public, and for explicit it's not required. For implicit, member is accessed by class instance, and for explicit implementation, member is accessed via interface type. This is demonstrated in the below code snippet. You initialize one of the class instance here, and for implicit methods, you just need to access it via the class instance because these methods are public. It will be available. Whereas if you want to access explicitly implemented method, it will be available only via the interface type and not via the class instance. You have to cast it to the interface type, then the method name will be accessible. That's about implicit and explicit implementation of interfaces. Moving on, at the final step, let's do a comparison and contrasting of abstract class and interface. So abstract class is providing an abstraction, that's the standard definition, whereas interface is providing a contract. So both are providing abstraction, but interface is giving in a way called code contract. You're adhering to a contract where you will implement all the methods. Abstract classes, as you have seen in the first step, we can have concrete members. We can define a number of concrete methods, concrete properties, or even concrete events. Whereas interface cannot have any concrete members. None of the properties, methods, or events will have implementation. Abstract class can have different access modifiers except private. Abstract members should be protected or above, internal or public. Whereas interface cannot have access modifiers. Implementation should be public in case of implicit or private in case of explicit. So abstract class can have variables, methods, and properties, whereas interface cannot have any variables, only methods and properties. Abstract class can inherit from, or a class can have a base class of one abstract class. Let's say you have multiple abstract classes and you want to derive from all these classes. It's not possible because of the limitation by design in C#. C# do not have a facility of multiple inheritance like C++. As for interface, this limitation is not there. A class can implement multiple interfaces. If you take a look at different classes in C# like list or collections, those will implement iList, IEnumerable, etc. So a class can implement multiple interfaces. That's all about the differences between abstract class and interface. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you. Have a nice day.